Hi everyone, it's Trevor from GNR Camping World. I wanted to talk to you folks about the electrical system on most campers. Now, some will vary a bit, depending on age, but we're going to talk about modern 30 amp camper. Whether it's a trailer, travel trailer, fifth wheel, motorhome. We're talking about the basic 30 amp system here. Even pop-up trailers have that nowadays. So we're going to talk about how the power works, how all these accessories in here, from stereos to hood vents to TVs to fridges to microwaves, there's a lot of stuff going on here on the electrical side of things. Propane is another system we'll talk about in the future, but propane is your heat, your oven, but the electrical gets a little funny, okay? You're plugging your camper in with a plug that looks something like this. Well, not something like this, it looks like this. This is a 30 amp plug. Should you need to adapt that down to a 15 amp plug for your basic household outlet, we do provide those as well. You just would not be able to run your air conditioning on this plug with a 15 amp plug. 30 amp, you plug into the campground, and you've got, basically you can run everything within reason, okay? Now, when the electricity comes into the camper, it goes through what's called a converter, okay? Let's see if we can find the converter here, have a look. And this is what, once you plug in, the electricity comes into there. Now you can see breakers right here, and you can see fuses right here. Those are two different electrical systems. The breakers are for your 110, or maybe called 115, even some people call it 120 volt, AC, so alternating current. Then you've got your fuses that control 12 volt DC or direct current, just like automotive wiring. Okay, so what runs on what is always the big common question, and how do I troubleshoot on my own if it's something simple? Okay, so it's almost easier to talk about what is 110 volt rather than what isn't, okay? Because there's very few things compared to the other, okay? The 12 volt, there's a lot more things that run on 12 volt. Your air conditioner is strictly 110 volt, and you need 30 amps. Again, if you're trying to run it off your household power, it may do it a little bit, but you may cause damage. So we never recommend running 15 amp household current like your regular plugs to run your air conditioner. You can run everything else. So it's your air conditioner and your microwave, and all of your electrical outlets are pretty much the main things that run on, have to be plugged into something, okay? And everything else can either run on propane or battery power, okay? I know that gets a little confusing, but I'll give you an example. Your lights are 12 volt, okay? That converts the 110 volt coming in there to 12 volt through those fuses, and that's your lights for power. So if you don't have a light working, could be a burnt out light, of course, but if all your lights aren't working or a bunch of your lights aren't working, maybe you've got a blown fuse down there. So sometimes there'll be an indicator, an LED indicator. I don't think this one has it, but it's hard to tell. If you blew a fuse, a red indicator might come on, but not all of them. Again, there's lots of different, things in here. So you might have to pull the fuse, physically look at it, and look and see if that filament is broken or not. Okay, so the other thing, water pump. This fan right here, that's going to be on 110 volt, or on 12 volt, I'm sorry. The fan in the bathroom, this fan right here, 12 volt, 12 volt. Now the lights, I said 12 volt. The awning is 12 volt. If it's a slide out, that's going to be a 12 volt system. So all of those, if they're giving you any kinds of power tongue jacks, 12 volt, the stabilizer jacks, if they're electric, have 12 volt, the radio is 12 volt, and even sometimes the TV will be 12 volt. I don't know if this one is or not, but sometimes they are 12 volt as well. A lot more are going off grid and using solar panels, and solar is also going to charge your 12 volt, just so we know that. Your fridge can be either 12 volt or could be 12 110 and propane, or it could be just 12 propane and 110 volt. Okay, there's lots of different fridges. This particular fridge is your propane and electric, so you can actually switch that from, if you can't not plugged in at a campsite, as long as you got battery power, you can switch it to either run on propane or you can switch it to run auto. So autos is kind of a neat little thing too, where you can actually put it on auto, and if you lose power at the campsite, it'll take 110 volt to begin with, but then it will, if you lose power, it'll switch over to propane by itself, as long as you have propane and it's turned on, and you have 12 volt power, because you need a 12 volt to run the brain in there. Three-way fridges in pop-up trailers, typically you don't need power to run on propane. It'll just run on propane itself. So a lot of different things going on, I know. But bottom line is 12 volt and 110 volt household power is the two combinations in here. If you're having problem with the microwave, the air conditioner, or the fridge, if you're trying to run it on 110, or any of your outlets, that's a 110 volt function that's protected by the breakers in that box. So you can try to reset breakers, and if that doesn't help, well then now maybe we've got a bigger problem that we need to look at. Anything 12 volt, I'm going to run through some of that again. The stereo, the TV possibly, but it just depends. Like some TVs are not. The lights, the fans, whether it's the fan in the bathroom, the fan over the stove, and this fan here, the water pump, the awning, slide outs, and power tongue jacks, stabilizer jacks, all that kind of stuff is 12 volt, okay? So there's much more that runs on 12 volt, and the reason they do that is that you can run more things on here when you're remote camping. Air conditioning, like I said, that's strictly going to be like 30 amp, and has to be. One more thing I want to just show you, and I'm going to try and squeeze, actually just back up a bit, and I'm going to show you in the bathroom here. Now, a lot of people are familiar with what they call a GFI or a GFCI. It's ground fault circuit interrupter. Now, that's designed, and they always have it near water, and a lot of times you'll see it in kitchens and bathrooms and household construction. These are 110 volt, just like at home. All your outlets are going to be 110 volt. Again, not to throw a lot of confusion, but if you have an inverter, then some of your outlets can be 110 volt running off the battery. But again, we're talking basic here. So if you're having problems with your outlets, this is designed, if you're plugging something in, I'll use a hairdryer and it drops into the water, it blows this before anything bad happens. Okay, they're testable. You can test it and reset it. See? Test it and reset it. And the difference between the household and this is this controls a lot of outlets. So if you're experiencing no power at an outlet way over there, it could be this that's causing the issue. Same thing with your exterior outlet or the outlet by the kitchen or things like that. So you just got to be careful. This was my first go-to when people have a problem with 110 volt power on the outlets. I check this one, and there might be another one on the outside of the camper sometimes. Check that first, and then you go through the rest of the troubleshooting, like breakers and things like that. Okay. Another note, when you're plugging into a campsite, it is a good idea to use a surge protector. Campgrounds are kind of notorious for having unstable power, but this is a surge protector. If something happens and it sends a jolt back to the unit, this is going to sacrifice before the trailer. And just so you know, when a surge happens and you're not using a surge protector and it does fry that box or fry that TV or fry the fridge, there's a lot of things that could do damage. That's not covered under warranty, so we strongly recommend this. Extension cords are nice to have too, because if you not every campground, the extension's right there or the cord's right there or the plug-in. So I would recommend carrying an extension cord with you as well. Okay, that's the basic system. Mostly 12 volt, some 110 volt. They want to confuse you. It worked. I love it. It's great. But that's why we're here. Okay? If you have any questions, contact us at sales@gnrcw.com.